Your family history does not have to be your story. That's the biggest thing I want people to know, and emphasize that a lot. So when I get to talk to my, relatively young people, so like 40 and under, I tell them that so much, like this is not your story. You don't have to accept that. So let's use what we can now. So that's not your story when you're your mom's age.
You are here for a reason, but navigating this human life can be challenging. How do you care for your body, mind, and spirit to make the most of your time here on Earth? How can you harness your incredible human potential? In this podcast, we explore these questions and more to help you craft your best life yet. Welcome to I Am Human. Hello, humans. I'm Dr. Yami, and I am your host. Thank you so much for joining me today for another episode of I Am Human. It's my pleasure to be here. If you have a chance, if you could please rate and review the podcast, subscribe to it if you haven't already. And if you feel like this episode would benefit somebody you love, share it with them. I would appreciate it so much. To be human means to potentially neglect your well-being in service of others. But it also means treating yourself with utmost care and optimizing your lifestyle habits so that you can prolong your years of service. And today, my guest, Dr. Amanda Adkins, MD, helps us understand that even better. So Dr. Adkins is a double board certified internal medicine and lifestyle medicine physician. She's health coach and owner of Enlightenment Health and Wealth. She has a deep passion for ensuring that everyone has a chance at a healthy and happy life. Her most recent focus has been to help women to prevent and possibly reverse chronic illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, and high blood pressure. Both through her medical and personal experience, she knows how our lifestyle can lead to remarkable changes in our health and our ability to fulfill God's will for our lives. So in this episode, we talk about her health journey, how she became vegetarian at a young age, and it took her decades to arrive at a whole food plant-based diet, but how it changed her life and how she used it to apply to others and to help others. We talk about why caring for our health, well-being, and longevity is important and what it means. She talks about what area people are making the biggest mistakes in their health. And then we talk about something that's very important to her and something that she integrates very clearly and regularly into her coaching practice, which is faith and spirituality. So it's interesting to hear her perspective as well as her four tenets that she uses as spiritual guides. She also tells us a couple of inspiring stories of clients and patients that have been able to make changes and what it meant for them. And it's just a great conversation. I know that you're going to love this. I really enjoyed getting to know her. We had a great conversation, and I feel like her wisdom and her experience is going to touch you today. So thank you so much for being here today. I hope you love this episode. And now on to the episode. The information on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not meant to replace careful evaluation and treatment. If you have concerns about your health or well-being, please consult a healthcare professional. Dr. Amanda Adkins, welcome to I Am Human. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to meet you also.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting to know you a little bit more and learning more about your story. So if you could just start with your plant-based journey, how did you come about that? How did you get to where you are now?
Yes. So I tell people this is a long story. It goes over decades,
Wow.
But I'll try to make it short. But no, my journey started back when I was a freshman in high school, and we had to do what they call the Presidential Physical Fitness Test. So this was back in the 90s. So people that knew about that. We actually had to step on the scale and actually get our body weight and BMI. And I was severely overweight. And I was like, okay, I looked in the mirror. I knew I was overweight, but I didn't know I weighed that much. And from that time on, I just said, I'm going to take back control of my health. I'm not going to go higher in my weight. And I'm not going to let what goes on in my family history, like high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, actually happen to me, because I was seeing it in my aunts, uncles, grandparents, and everything. And I was like, this has to stop. So I did what I knew to do at the time. I just started exercising. And I was like, okay, this has to help some. So it did. But then at the age of 16, I became a vegetarian. And people find that very funny because my father was a meat delivery truck driver at the time. So,
Oh my goodness.
so all we had was, like, I shouldn't say all he had. Most of the things that we ate was, processed meats like bacon, sausage, bologna, hot dogs. And so here I am at 16 years old telling him I'm not going to eat this food anymore. What am I going to do now? So, of course, my parents were like, okay, whatever you're going to do, but we're not going to make, arrangements around you at this point in time. So I figured they thought it was a fad, but I didn't know, anything at the time. I was just like, I need to lose weight. I need to become healthier. What else can I do? And I tell people I was the junk food vegetarian. So I ate things like Big Mac with no meat and French fries, Doritos and Coca-Cola, really not knowing what I was doing. And so I just went on with life, trying to get through med school and, residency and everything like that. And I actually went to a course for, CMEs and on nutrition, since we don't learn a lot about nutrition in med school. And one of the doctors there said, you cannot out exercise a bad diet. And I was like, that really stuck with me. I don't remember hardly anything else about the conference, but just that actual quote spoke, volumes to me. And from that point on, I was like, okay, what is the, the actual lifestyle diet that's the healthiest for me? And one of my patients actually turned me on to Dr. Joel Fuhrman, and I got his book, Eat to Live. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I need to do. And so from then on, that was probably in around 2010. And so I was like, okay, what can I do? Still not wanting to give up cheese at the time, and eggs. So I was like, okay, maybe I can just do a little bit better with, fruits and vegetables, or, not eating too much. And then it took still another, I would say, 5 years after that before fully becoming more plant-based, and really like actually feeling better. And so people always ask, like, why did you, give it up? Why didn't you ever go back? Don't you miss eating meat? Don't you miss eating cheese? And I was like, no, because I feel so much better. And when you feel better, you want to still do better. I can't say that I'm 100% perfect, but it's still like, I know when I'm, sliding back off track, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I don't feel good. I'm starting to ache more. I need to get back on track. And so because of the way I feel, it just keeps me going.
Wow. So back to when you were 16, why did you decide to become vegetarian then?
And, I wish I was able to go talk to my 16-year-old self to know for sure. It was just like, I have to lose weight. What way can I cut out something to lose weight? And that's just like what I thought of. Like one of my cousins who, she was actually a vegetarian also. And I was like, well, she's fit. She's in shape. I'm going to try what she's doing. She was never overweight. She was an athlete. She looked great at all times. But I was just like, okay, if I want to look like her, maybe I should try what she's doing. And that's just what I tried. And it worked.
But it sounds like you never went back to meat after that, though.
Correct. That's right.
Interesting. Interesting. What an interesting journey. And yeah, I mean, everybody has a different path. Sometimes people do it in that stepwise fashion. Other people, they go cold turkey and go for it all at once. So yeah, it's interesting that yours had to take many different evolutions and learning from one of your own patients, which is amazing sometimes when patients can bring us information that we can learn from. So that's so cool. Well, why should we even care about health, well-being, and longevity? How and why does this even make a difference in the world, in your opinion?
So I tell people, you are here for a purpose. And if you're not actually carrying out your purpose, it's hard for the rest of us to do that. So I just, focus on that, like just having your own well-being and doing well. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about us as a collective. And we all need each other to be successful in this life. So I really want everyone to be, the tip top shape that they can, so we can all be better. And I tell people it's not about necessarily the number of years that you're actually living. It's those quality of years that you have. Of course, we all want to live, to where, 90, 100, but you don't want to be, 100 and sitting watching everybody else do stuff. And you just like wishing, I was back 20 years old, I can do this. You want to be that, 100-year-old that's still, walking those or running those marathons, if that's what you do, or, going on those vacations and, climbing the mountains and stuff. I mean, I love hiking. So that's what I envision myself doing at, 95, like still climbing, climbing the sides of mountains. Maybe not as fast, but I'm still going to be doing it. So I just, look forward to that. And you don't have to, grow old. You can just, you may just get more birthdays, but you don't have to get, slower and, slow down and things of the such. So.
I love it. Yeah, I think as our mindset about aging is changing and our perception of aging, how it's changing, I think we are living longer, younger, if that makes any sense, right? I feel like we are, like, instead of thinking, oh, I'm going to get to a certain age and I'm going to be decrepit and I'm not going to be able to move, we're thinking, how can I get to this age and still do the things I love? I recently read a story about a 90-something-year-old who went skydiving for the first time.
Yes.
And I was just like, man, that sounds scary. I hope they were fine. They're fine at the end, but just like, can you imagine going skydiving when you're 90-something? That's really cool.
That is, but I'm definitely afraid of heights. So that probably wouldn't be one that I would do, but hey, more power to you if that's what you want to do at 90.
Do you find that any of your clients that you work with struggle with taking care of themselves and their own well-being because they're feeling like it's selfish or that they're not giving enough to others? And if so, how do you talk to them about their mindset and approach to this?
Oh, that's very good. So that's a lot when I talk to caregivers. So moms, women taking care of their parents, something of the such. I'm like, if you're not well, they're not going to be well. So that's the route I usually try to go. Is like, it's not selfish when you care for yourself, because if something happens to you, then think about what's going to happen to them. And that usually resonates a little bit different when they hear that. Because they're like, you're right. So just because I go out for a walk or take time for myself does not mean that I'm not caring for my family member. I'm actually caring for them, because they actually see, and I actually tell them, statistics that, caregivers are likely to die before the person they're caring for because they're neglecting their own health. And, just hearing those things are just like, okay. I hear you. I definitely want to do that. And I see a lot of people coming back in saying, oh, well, I've, neglected myself. I had a lot of things going on, but I'm here again now just to, really focus on me so I can, care for my loved ones. So I really applaud them. I take time to actually tell them that I'm so happy that they're here. They're taking care of themselves, because in the long run, they're going to be better for their family, and their family is going to be better and healthier.
Yeah. And it's never too late. Right. I think sometimes we get so busy, and especially being in that sandwich generation where you still have kids that you have to care for and think of all these details, but you also have aging parents. That's a tough place to be. And sometimes you end up in survival mode. But after a while of feeling bad, you don't want to feel bad anymore. The other thing I think about is caregiving is hard and it's stressful. And whenever we don't take care of ourselves, when we're sleep deprived, we haven't had exercise, we're not eating the right food, we're not as joyful. Right. So then we might become like a little grumpy and short and, snap at people. And that's also not the best energy for everybody around us. So when we take care of ourselves, we're also offering better energy, more joyful, positive energy for the people around us, which actually ends up being better than us being like all self-sacrificial and being like, I'm not going to take care of myself, but I'm going to be grumpy the whole time, Right.
Yes. Yeah. That helps no one.
In what area do you think that people make the biggest mistakes in their health?
I would have to say nutrition, because that's what I focus on the most. If I talk with someone, usually they're kind of like me in my journey, where they're like, if I can just get exercise down, then I'll be perfect, And I was like, well, let's kind of, dig in that a little bit more, because we definitely want to be active. I always tell people, I'm not saying not to exercise, but we probably can do a little bit better in nutrition. And if you look at that, I mean, US wide, we're all kind of not doing well in nutrition. So I would really have them focus on that. I ask them all the time, what are you eating? So if we can actually change that, and then adding in, the exercise, the stress relief, the sleep, all those things will actually come into play better. And actually, when we have better nutrition, we sleep better. We have better mood. We can actually feel better when we exercise. We don't have as much muscle and joint pain. So if we actually start with the nutrition side, I think everything else can fall into place a little bit easier. At least that's what I've seen in my own experience.
Yeah, I love that you point that out because it's true. When we're eating inflammatory foods, it can literally cause us pain. Like it can
Exactly.
literally cause joint pain, especially the older we are, going through perimenopause and menopause. We are more susceptible to those joint pains and those weird aches because of the change in the hormones. So when we're eating an anti-inflammatory diet, it makes the physical activity easier and better and more pleasurable. So I think that's a good approach too, is starting with the diet. What changes can we make? And just like you were saying earlier, we are so far away from the ideal diet in the United States that even little changes can make a big difference for some people, get them started on the right track. They feel better, they sleep better, then they can start stacking those habits and those different lifestyle principles. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. One of the things that I was really interested in talking to you about is faith and spirituality and how it plays into your coaching. So, what is your perspective on integrating your faith and spirituality into your coaching? And are you finding that clients are receptive to this? Are they seeking it out? Are they looking for somebody that can integrate this? What's your experience been?
So I didn't necessarily start it as like that's just who I am. That's a big part of what I do from time growing up in the church. And I just noticed that a lot of people in the church were not healthy. And I believe that I was able to, go to undergrad and then get into a medical school that was out of state, that paid my tuition, and then actually go on through, residency and things of such to actually end up with lifestyle medicine, because I believe that I had the calling to actually come back and show people, what I went through for decades, and then actually show them, the science and medicine behind it to get them healthier. And so most of the time when I'm talking to people, especially people of faith, they're like, oh my gosh, I never actually put the scriptures with, health and wellness. They hear about things like the Daniel fast, and they may, participate that in their church, but to actually use that, year long, tying that into what they're doing long term, they're just like, oh wow, I never thought of it that way. And I think people do seek me out because of that specifically. I have, people that are like, oh yes, that really spoke to me when you talked about this scripture. So I really wanted to see, what more what you are about. And so it actually just keeps them motivated. Because I find that it's not necessarily that they don't know what to do. It's just actually staying on track. And so when they can actually tie their physical being into their spiritual being, they're usually a bit more successful.
Yeah, I love that. It's almost like a different area to draw strength from, because whenever you're making a lifestyle change, especially living in the society that we live in, where there's temptation everywhere, every single place you look, you can't even watch TV, even
Exactly.
apps. Like I was on an app the other night where it was advertising Oreo cookies, and I'm just like, you can't escape it no matter what you do. It's like everywhere, right? So when somebody is strong in their faith and they can use that as a way to bolster that pursuit of those habits, that discipline, going through some of these tough things in order to get to where they want to go, I think that can be really helpful. Tell me about the 4 core tenets that you use as spiritual guides.
Yes. So the first is just it's actually scripture based. So actually, whatever you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of the Lord. So whatever we do, So we can think of it as an act of worship. So again, people think of that more deeply than, oh, I'm at church, so this is my worship. But when I'm at home eating, that's something totally different. Pull that all together. And then them realizing that their body is a temple, that the actually Holy Spirit lives within. A lot of us, especially in the African American community, you tell people, don't come to my house because it's not clean. So I'll tell them, think about your temple like you have the Spirit of God within you. Do you want your temple to be clean? So they're like, okay, I like that. I like that. I never thought of it that way. And then for the actual different mindset around the way we actually eat. So soul food, they're like, I have to have my fried chicken. I have to have my ham hocks. I'm like, no, we're going to transform our mind. So in Romans, we talk about be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So that's another core tenet that I have. Like, if we actually think differently, we'll actually do different things, get that mindset there. And that we're all here together to help one another again. So we're all part of the body of Christ. And as each of us does well, the other person will be able to help that person. So when one is strong, the other may be weak. And then we can actually help each other. And I really talk about a lot also of finances for the people of the church, and how we're always dependent on like other people to supply the needs in our community. And if we actually can build up our own church and actually our own community, we can actually give back to our community. So when I go and speak, I really, hamper on that, where when we're better physically, we can do better financially, and then actually help our people instead of trying to depend on the government to actually give out grants and waiting for them to actually supply. And we're like, oh, well, if they can just give us this. I know there's a lot of other, aspects, but if we can actually build our own wealth and get back to that and depend on ourselves, like I said, we're all a body of Christ, that we can actually help our community, the people that are struggling, and then actually bring more souls to the kingdom. So it all ties together. And I just like to emphasize that there's no part of you that's not supposed to be doing work for the kingdom. So I try to bring it all together for them.
I love that. I never even thought that far. Maybe I don't spend a lot of time thinking that far into it, but it's so true that if you don't take care of your body, you're not going to be a productive member of society. And not to say that in a shameful way,
Right.
because obviously there's people at all different levels and abilities. But I think as humans, we want to be productive. We want to contribute. And whenever we take care of our bodies, we're able to be productive. Like you had said earlier in the interview, we're able to fulfill that purpose that we all feel called inside to do, whether it's even to be a caregiver. Like if that's what you feel is your purpose in life, I feel like I speak to a lot of people who have that servant heart. They want to serve so badly. But for me, it's so important to convey to them, the more you take care of yourself, the more you're able to serve, and you're able to serve longer and more joyfully. And what a gift that is. So not to think about it like a selfish way, think about it as that is your contribution. Part of your contribution is taking care of your body and optimizing it as much as you have control over, because obviously we don't have control over everything, but there's so many things that we do. So becoming empowered in what nutrition choices we can make, how we can optimize our physical activity and our sleep and our stress management and all of that. So I love how you're able to tie that all in together into spirituality, especially for people that resonates with them. That's really great. Well, I'd love to hear if you're able to share a couple of inspiring stories of people that have had success in your program. What can you tell us to inspire us today?
Yes. So I always think about one mother that has high blood pressure. And she's been, doing things in my program, and it finally clicked for her where she was like, okay, I think I finally can, get my exercise done and everything there. But my nutrition, I noticed that it wasn't as good as it should be. And so we were working with her, weekly, always having her get what she needs to be eating. What are you eating? How much of it are you getting in? All your fiber that you need? You're really watching that salt. And her blood pressure was always like in the 140s over 90s. She used to like give blood, and they would even turn her away at times because her blood pressure just wasn't controlled. And she was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And so we just made small tweaks every single week to just kind of see where we go. And then at the end of the 12 weeks is usually my program with one-on-one clients. She was able to say that she went to the doctor, and her doctor even came, the nurse checked it first, and her doctor came in and rechecked it to see if it was really that low. I mean, she was like, it was 127/80. And she was like, her blood pressure was never that good when she went to the doctor, for it so much that the doctor rechecked it herself just to make sure that that was actually what her blood pressure was. And this wasn't in adding any more medications. It was just those simple diet changes that she was making throughout. And she was even able to have less joint pain. And she usually was an avid walker. And she said she was even able to jog with her teenage daughter a little bit more. And just, hearing that in her voice to see how successful she was. And I was like, this is the work you did. I was just able to like tweak a little things here, just have you, be reflective on what you were doing. And you did all the work. So you should be very happy for yourself of what all you did. And, she's still doing well to this day. And I love telling her story because it just made my heart so glad when she actually said that she was able to jog with her daughter. Then the doctor rechecking her blood pressure, but hey, we'll take both wins. So that was so wonderful. Then I have another that was more of feeling that she was going to be deprived of food when she first changed her eating habits. She was like, I don't know, because every time I go on a diet, I'm always hungry. Then I start binge eating. And then I'm just back to this, roller coaster of, trying to lose weight, gain it back, trying to lose weight, gain it back. And she was like, but when I did the 5-day program that I offered, she was like, I didn't even feel hungry. And I was like, that's because she said, I felt better. I felt lighter, but I didn't feel hungry. So it felt like something that I actually continue, more and more, not just, I can only do this for 5 days and then hurry up. Let me get my, chicken back or, the steak back. I just need that immediately. But I tell them like, your protein plus your fiber together. I mean, you just put that together wisely and you'll feel satisfied. You're not going to be necessarily hungry on a plant-based diet. Because people always laugh, think, just eat carrots, even though I love carrots, carrots and celery all the time. That's not the case. You get a lot of fulfilling food with plants, and you actually can do that. So just hearing that, and she was, just seeing that, she was like, I can do this because so many people are afraid. So I was just happy to hear that for her, that she wasn't afraid anymore to actually take back control of her health, knowing that she wasn't going to be starving. She didn't have to go on that starvation diet to actually be successful.
I love that. I hear that so much when people transition to a whole food plant-based diet, and that they can't believe how much food they can eat. And it's less calories than what they were eating before, because I think people are used to, quote, cutting their calories, and then they just reduce portions of what they were already eating, a lot of processed foods, which are not satisfying. The fiber is so low, it's so broken down that it just gets absorbed right away. You don't feel that nice heavy bulk in your stomach, that satisfaction, which ironically is lower in calories than what you were eating before. That was a smaller volume,
Yes.
So a lot of people are surprised. And that's one of the huge benefits of eating a whole food plant-based diet, is that fiber, that bulk, that satiety. It feels so good. You're nourishing all your good gut bugs that are taking care of you. And it's just like this great positive feedback cycle that a lot of people are surprised by, because when they've done diets in the past, like I said, it was very depriving, and they felt hungry and torture, basically.
Right. Yes, exactly. And then they don't have that that heavy weight, like, oh, now I got to take a nap. I was like, you shouldn't feel like you need to take a nap after eating. Food is, energy. It should energize you. So that's a big difference too.
I love those stories. Thank you for sharing. I love the first one on how the doctor was so skeptical that they had to retake the blood pressure. I've done that before, but in the opposite direction. Unfortunately, when the blood pressure is too high and I'm like, that can't be right, recheck it. And I'm like, oh, unfortunately it is right.
Yeah.
But I think there's so many medical providers, and you've probably experienced this as well, that unfortunately are not aware of the power of diet and lifestyle and how it can have such a strong effect on some of these chronic conditions. Have you encountered that with your clients and maybe other doctors that you've run into as well, saying, oh, my doctor said I'm be on medicines the rest of my life, or that, there's no, diet has no effect on this condition? Is that something that you've come across?
Yes. And I have people actually seek me out because of that. Even in my, practice, they're like, oh, I heard that you don't, like to, give medications out. And I'm like, well, I'll prescribe if we need to, but we definitely going to work on the underlying cause. I was like, it's going to be more work on your end. It's easy for me to write a prescription, just send you on your way, in and out in 5 minutes. But if we really want to actually change your health, then let's, talk about what we can do. And initially I was like, why am I getting all these people that, saying they don't want medications? And then I didn't know that it was, going around word of mouth that people are like, oh yeah, she doesn't prescribe. She doesn't prescribe. You can just try her. You should try her. And then one of my patients even said, okay, I'm ready for my lecture today. I'm like, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to help you. What do you mean? She's like, I know, but I know what we talked about last time and that I didn't do everything. I was like, but that's okay. You're doing one step more than what you did the last time. So I never want you to think that you're going to come in here and I'm not going to be, happy for what you're doing. I just want you to make progress each and every time. And if not, then we can talk about what is blocking that, what is standing in your way. And don't ever not come for your appointments because you feel like you didn't do everything that we talked about. That's not the case. That's not going to help you at all. So I really try to emphasize that, to know that they know that I'm on their side. It's not me against them. It's us together. We can actually do this.
Yeah, that's the difference between a coach approach and that expert physician approach, in that we understand that humans are humans. And I mean, if we did everything perfect, then we wouldn't need doctors or coaches at all. So, it's just about the human condition. And we have to learn step by step and make some mistakes and then come back and tweak a few things. And then life changes completely. And then we have to tweak it again. But I think if patients and clients understand that, then they can approach it from that expectation of like, okay, I feel good about this habit, but when winter comes and it's cold outside and I can't walk outside, I'm going to have to come up with a plan B.
Yes.
I'm constantly going to have to be doing this life editing and tweak my habits and behaviors to fit my environment, to fit my circumstances, what's changing around me. Now I'm a caregiver to this person, or now I'm an empty nester, whatever it is changes. We have to kind of be willing to adapt and change around it. So I think that's life. That's just
right.
normal.
Yes. And I always remind them that we're always on a journey. We never arrive. So if you just think about that and then think about the grace that you have and give that to yourself, you're more likely to be successful long term.
Yeah. What do you think is the easiest change that people can make when they first come to you? Say somebody's like, they're starting from scratch. They're eating the standard American diet, sedentary, stress, not sleeping. What's usually one of the first things that you work with them to change?
The first thing I tell them, just to add fruits and vegetables to every meal. You don't take away anything. You just add. And they find that that's the easiest thing because they don't feel like they're being deprived. So if you have a fruit and a vegetable at every meal, you're doing great, because most of the time in the standard American diet, we don't have a fruit or a vegetable all day.
Yes.
So if they can do that, they're well on their way. Then we can talk about what else we're going to start to decrease and change and cut out. I usually, after they do that, I tell them they got to cut out the processed meat. And I get a lot of, pushback because people love their bacon, especially where I'm at. So they always talk about, what, bacon? I was like, yes, bacon. Take it away.
I know. I'm still surprised that they serve processed meat in schools, the pepperoni pizza and the hot dogs and all that, after we have so much evidence of the harm that it can cause us. So I think that's a great approach is, first, let's do addition, because everybody likes adding things, right? And it should be more pleasant. And then after that, let's get rid of something that we have plenty of evidence for that can be harming us and contributing to our health problems. So that's a great approach. What do you wish more people knew?
That they can actually change. There's so many people think that that they are like stuck in a certain path. So they always tell me, well, my mom had high blood pressure, my dad has high blood pressure, my grandmother had high blood pressure, so I'm not surprised my blood pressure is high. And I'm like, no, you do not have to accept that as your reality. Let's see what we can change, because mom, dad, and grandma may have all been eating certain foods. They may not have been exercising. Of course, with the world today, we have access to everything, which can be a good and bad thing. So the extra stress. So let's try to change some of those things and see if that's not your story. So your family history does not have to be your story. That's the biggest thing I want people to know. And emphasize that a lot. So when I get to talk to my, relatively young people, so like 40 and under, I tell them that so much, like this is not your story. You don't have to accept that. So let's use what we can now. So that's not your story when you're your mom's age.
Yeah. And better yet, when we change the story, when we change the narrative, we're also changing that for the future generations too.
Yes.
So we're giving them that huge advantage. I mean, what a gift
Yes.
when we can raise our children and our grandchildren with these principles and being a role model, because regardless of what we think, they do look up to us and they do think about what we're doing. And so when we're role modeling being healthy people making healthy choices, that does go along with them in life, even if, they stray off the path, somewhat during adolescence and college age. They do think about that and it stays with them, and then they pass it down to their children. So That's a marvelous gift.
Yeah. And I want to point out that you mentioned that, because I actually had a family member of mine actually say, oh, your daughter eats salad? And this was when she was like 2 years old. And I was like, yeah, she eats salad. I eat salad. So that's what she's going to eat. So you're definitely right. They are watching what we're doing. And actually, that is one of my life goals, is to actually make a new family history, a new health legacy for our family, so that she can pass that down to hers too. So, yeah. You was like in my brain with that.
Yeah, I love that. It's so beautiful. And we have the ability to do that. So I do want everybody listening to feel empowered that you can change the narrative for your family. Maybe it was different in the past for whatever reason, but you have the ability to change that. Take a 180. Let's go a different direction with the rest of, these history that we're going to be passing down. How do you define success in this lifetime?
Success, I would say, is doing what you feel like you were called to do in this life. So, like I said, I'm now just realizing of all the things I've been through in life, of like why I'm here now. And like I said, I think I was, that 16-year-old that had to become a vegetarian to actually see that life change, to actually go back and tell, people in my community that this can be done. People are still surprised, like you said, like, oh, so from the age of 16, you still didn't eat meat? Like one guy that I grew up with, I was talking to him and his wife not too long ago. He said, oh, you haven't eaten meat since that time? Like he would take me to different places and I was like, I want this with no meat. And he never realized that I never went back to eating meat. And so I just feel like that's a success because of my story. And if I can just continue to live out this life and, just inspire others to take back control of their health and, like I said, leave a health legacy for their family, then I feel like that life has been a success for me.
I love that. That's so beautiful. Well, I'm going to get a little nosy because I love this question. But if you can share maybe either some items that you have on your bucket list still, or a dream or a goal that you have a burning desire to realize.
Let's see. A burning desire for me would be to have I wouldn't say like a free health clinic for people that have insurance, but like in that middle income range. Because that was like our family, like we were growing up, we're like, our parents made too much money to get any assistance, but not enough money to really do anything. So it's always been my dream to have something for that group of people that may not have that. And I have patients now that's like fall into that category. They're like, I can hardly pay my rent, but they say I make too much money for, this, and I can't get my medications because of this. And so that's like my lifelong goal to actually be able to somehow fund that. And again, looking to fund that somewhat, with whether it's through a church organization or through, something I do with nonprofits, to where it's not necessarily I'm dependent on someone else, but that we can, work together to actually see that come forth. Because I really think if we can deal with that, and because I think that's the majority of Americans, they're in that category, to actually get them healthy, that then we'll all be in a better place.
What a beautiful dream. I love that. And I know you're going to realize it. So just keep working at it.
Thank you. Thank you.
What does it mean to be human?
What does it mean to be human? Ooh, that's a good question. Like human, thinking to be in this world and just be, kind, gentle, and giving to others. Because I'm thinking if I don't see that in any other species, that you can actually interact with people and actually make them better. We think of the animal kingdom, it's like, kill or be killed. But as a human being, you don't have to worry about that necessarily. If we're all kind to each other, we can actually build up each other and be better.
Yeah. So I think what you're referring to there is that empathy and altruism. Although we are starting to hear some reports that it does happen in animals, I feel like in humans, we have more of that drive of like, I see your pain, I want to help you, even though it's not necessarily directly helping me survive or do anything for me. It's something that gives me joy to help you and to ease your suffering. And I agree, that's a very human trait. Thankfully, we have that. So.
And I think that when we do help others like that, even if it's not our pain, that it does help us in a certain way. So like when we're able to give, because it gives you so much joy. Like that's one reason why I love to give, because when you see someone else and they're actually successful, like you said, even though you don't benefit, maybe in material form, I think emotionally and mentally you benefit a lot, just by seeing others. Because I know that's been the case for me. It's just like to see someone else like prosper and they come back and say, oh, you may not have known this, but you said something to this. And I didn't even realize, like, that's just something that rolls off my tongue. And they're like, and because of that, I'm like so much better. It's just like, oh my gosh, you're definitely making a difference in someone else's life. Even though it doesn't cost you much of anything, it actually can pay you in dividends that you never even realized.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. And like I said before, I feel like there's some people that it's part of their personality. It's part of what they're called to do. So they're going to do it regardless. And hopefully they'll do it in a way that they're also taking care of themselves in the process, right, so they can keep doing it for longer. Well, Dr. Adkins, this has been fantastic getting to know you. Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing some client stories. If you could please tell us where we can connect with you and what products and services you offer.
Yeah, so I have a website at dramandamd.com. So it's dramandamd.com. You can actually book a consult call with me. I do one-on-one coaching, and then I also offer group coaching, which I offer once a quarter. So the next one will be in April. Again, those are just, where people can get snippets of how little changes in their life can actually make them feel better. And I'm also on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Dr. Amanda Adkins.
And you're also seeing patients as well? You have a private practice?
I do have a private practice. Well, I'm actually in a group practice. I shouldn't say it's a private practice in Northern California. But actually that practice is closed because I have so many patients.
Oh, okay. So can't see you there, but they can see you for coaching, which is great. So
yes. All
right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate getting to know you and all of the wisdom that you shared in your experiences. I know it's going to be helpful to many listeners, and I hope that you have a very plantastic day. I know you have already.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed speaking with you today. My name is Dr. Amanda Adkins, and I am human.
Thank you for listening to another episode of I Am Human. I would be so honored if you subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode. We love our listeners and take your feedback seriously. If you have questions or constructive feedback, you can email us at podcast@dryami.com. That's podcast at doctoryami.com. I am your host, Dr. Yami Cazorla-Lancaster. I Am Human is produced by myself and Alejandra Parra. Graphics designed by Alejandra Parra. Music by Angela Soph with Glowbox Productions and edited by the Castos production team. Remember, human, you are here for a reason. Have fun, explore, and live your life to the fullest.